Okay, so today it is December the 5th on the Gregorian calendar, and Kislev the 17th, 5778 on the Hebrew calendar. Why is this important? Oh, before I continue, I will preface this video with a statement that is on my videos from here on. I will wear the yellow star and strange yellow clothes that Christians forced the Jews to wear during the Crusades and in the 30s and 40s, 1930s and 40s. So here we are at 100, nearly 100 years to the day. Just got a few more days left, folks. Just a few more days. And I think, I'm not sure if it's already changed. I'm not sure what the hours difference is. I think in a few hours it'll be Kislev the 18th. Yes, I think so. So in a few hours it will be 2 more days to the day that Jehovah, our Father in heaven, was talking about concerning judgment upon the nations. The day that it begins. Does it begin in 2017 on the Gregorian calendar? I do not know. But I find it interesting. And many of you will too. And I'm hoping I'm not jumping the gun here. But there are headlines right now on the Jerusalem Post, Haaretz, and some others, although Dedka File is keeping their mouths shut. And maybe they should, maybe I should, but I can't help myself because this would bring great joy to me. But 100 years ago, just a few days from now, after the British made a solemn promise to provide a homeland for the Jews, and then breaking that promise and herding the Jews from Europe away from the Holy Land, away from safety, away from reconciliation, away from salvation. Yes, they herded them away from salvation to their deaths. And that is the reason why I will wear this in my videos from heretofore. So now here we are 100 years later, just short a couple of days. And on the Jerusalem Post, via Reuters, Trump tells Jordan's king he'll move U.S. embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Amman, Jordan, U.S. President Donald Trump phoned Jordan's King Abdullah on Tuesday and told him he intends to go ahead with a decision to move the U.S. embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, a Jordanian palace statement said. King Abdullah was quoted in the statement as telling Trump that such a decision would have dangerous repercussions on the stability and security of the region. Of course, he is threatening Donald Trump and threatening Israel, and would obstruct U.S. efforts to resume Arab-Israeli peace talks. It would also inflame Muslim and Christian feelings. And he's right. King Abdullah of Jordan said, and I quote, "It would also inflame Muslim and Christian feelings, not against each other, but against Israel. You see? And he's right, it would. But one must understand that Israel's rising shall be the fall of this world, or I will use language that people really won't like, but it's the truth, the fall of the Gentiles. And Paul very carefully makes note of this in Romans 11. Okay, so U.S. endorsement of Israel's claim of all Jerusalem as its capital would break with decades of U.S. policy that the city's status must be decided in negotiations with the Palestinians who want East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. The international community does not recognize Israel's sovereignty over the entire city. Well, the international community is wrong. So King Abdullah warned Trump of the risk of any decision that ran counter to a final settlement of the Arab-Israeli conflict based upon the creation of an independent Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the key to achieving peace and stability in the region and the world, the palace statement said. The monarch also phoned Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and said that they both work together to confront the consequences of this decision. King Abdullah's Hashemite dynasty is the custodian of the Muslim holy sites in Jerusalem, making Amman sensitive to any changes of the status of the disputed city. So, Jerusalem must rise. Israel must rise again. It must happen. And Christians and Muslims may not, let me say it again, Christians and Muslims may not interfere. They have lost any moral authority whatsoever concerning Jerusalem. For each has pillaged the holy city and have murdered the inhabitants of that holy city and exiled the rest of them. Now, so we still don't know the answer, but it appears phone calls have been made. And Erdogan of Turkey is really beating his war drum. So, what is the world to do? I am going to go to Romans 11. I'm not going to read the whole thing this time, because I have read the whole thing so many times, and everyone should read it and memorize it, folks. Romans 11 is the heart of the gospel. So is Hebrews 8. So is Jeremiah 31, beginning with verse 31. So in the first verse, he's disputing with the Romans. The Romans are saying that Jehovah, our Father in heaven, has cast away his people whom he foreknew. Paul said, no, he has not. Read it. Verse 7 says, Israel has not obtained that which he seeks for, but the election has obtained it. The rest were blinded. Let me ask you a question. Has Abraham received that blessing yet? According to the apostles, no, he has not. But he will. What is the election? Election in Isaiah 45 says, Israel is my elect. What is he talking about? You see, blindness in part happened to Israel, verse 25, so that the Gentiles could also have a light shined upon them. If it weren't for that, the Gentiles would have no chance. And yet the Gentiles, over a period of 2,000 years, has murdered, raped, and pillaged Israel, the Jews, the holy seed, the holy city. When you read verse 25 and verse 26, I'm not saying you have to read between the lines or read something that is not there. It is there. But you have to read carefully to see it. Verse 25, for I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits. That blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. In other words, until the number of the Gentiles that was chosen from the beginning, that number would be filled. And then the blindness will be taken away. What's going to happen when the blindness is taken away? Well, you have to go back just a few verses. Starting in verse 16. If the first fruit, that is Yeshua Messiah, is holy, then the lump, which is Israel, is also holy. And if the root be holy, the Messiah is holy, then so are each of the 12 branches. That means those Christians and Muslims who have been cursing the tribes of Israel in their heart, and mainly been cursing the Jews, but it does not matter. If you curse one of them, you curse them all. And if you curse in your hearts or with your mouth any of the tribes of Israel, you curse the root. And if you curse the root, you yourselves shall become accursed. And this, unfortunately, is what the Christians and the Muslims have been doing these past nearly 2,000 years, although Islam, Muhammad, the false prophet Muhammad came later. So the Christians are even more responsible, are even more guilty than the Muslims in this matter. They committed far more crimes against the Holy One of Israel and his Messiah by murdering the holy seed. You cannot remove the one from the other. Paul points this out to the Romans. If the root is holy, then so are the Israeli branches. And he says in verse 17, that some of the branches are broken off, and you, being a wild olive branch, were grafted among them. What do you mean? Oh, grafted among them? Well, the Gentiles are grafted in instead. No, grafted among them. And he says if some of the branches were broken, it doesn't say all the branches. And if some of the branches are broken off, and you being a wild olive tree were grafted among them, and with them partakest of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. Because if you boast, what he's essentially saying here is you're boasting against the root. if you curse, you're cursing the root. Exactly what I've just said. If you curse one of the branches in your heart or with your mouth, you've cursed the root. And as a result, you will be judged by the words that come out of your mouth. If you bless with your mouth and with your heart Israel and any of or all the branches, then you have blessed in your heart and with your mouth the root, the Messiah. But the root bears you. You will say then, the branches are broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. Romans. For if Jehovah spared not the natural branches, be careful, lest he also spare you not either. And you see, folks, judgment upon the Christians is coming because of what they did to the natural branches. They did not listen to Paul. Paul said this was going to happen if they did not heed. They didn't heed. There is nearly 2,000 years of history to prove that the Romans did not heed. And now what's coming to the Romans, to the Europeans, is exactly what they did to the Jews. It's coming. And it comes when Israel and Jerusalem are exalted again. So he says in verse 24, for if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? In other words, the blessing will be far greater. Far greater than Europe has received? Yes. You think that life is wonderful now in Europe and the United States? You've seen nothing yet. How wonderful life will be in the Holy Land when Jerusalem is exalted once again. When Jerusalem and Israel is raised up again. Again, verse 25, for I would not, brethren, that you be ignorant of this mystery, lest you be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness or the finale of the Gentiles be come in. And so, that's when the time of the Gentiles is finished, that's when the 77s are complete, and they are. I've proven it in Daniel 9, I've proven it. And so all Israel shall be saved. Oh boy, this offends a lot of people when I say it. When I wear my hat with it. When my dad wears his hat with that on there. For there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob, for this is my new covenant with them. Hebrews 8. When I shall take away their sins. Jeremiah 31, verse 31, and the next verses after. As concerning the gospel, in those days, they were enemies for the Gentiles' sakes. But as touching the election, they are the beloved. The Jews are the beloved for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's sakes. So you can't say that the Jews are not the elect, because they are. You can't say that Israel is not the elect, because they are the elect. For the gifts and the calling of our Father in heaven cannot be changed. For as you in times past have not believed Elohim, yet you have now obtained mercy because of their unbelief. Even so have these also not believed, and because of that, because you, the unbelieving Gentile, has received mercy, they shall also receive mercy. Because our Father in heaven has concluded all in unbelief, so that he might have mercy upon all. Now, James said to those who showed no mercy, there won't be any mercy shown to them. Romans, Europeans, prepare for your demise. It is my greatest desire, my extreme desire, to see a President of the United States declare Jerusalem to be Israel's undivided, eternal capital. It is my greatest extreme desire to see a President of the United States put the embassy, put that Sukkot, take it from Tel Aviv and put it in Jerusalem where it rightly belongs. And the enemies of Israel be damned. And if he follows through on it, folks, you know what's going to happen. In my last video, I warned about this. You know what's going to happen? Europe and the Christian Europe and the Muslims will quickly try to make war with Israel. Mark my words. So I'm waiting with bated breath. I'm extremely impatient. I'm almost twitching over this. You should be too. And let me tell you this. If the day after tomorrow he follows through on this, if Donald Trump follows through on this, you had better prepare 3.5 years worth of supplies just in case you need it. It's time to wake up. Wake your neighbors up too. Tell them the same thing.